The wedding reception was in full swing. Music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses filled the grand hall. The newlyweds, Kemi and Tundi, sat at the center, glowing with happiness. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. The double doors to the reception hall burst open, slamming against the walls. All heads turned as a furious woman in a red gown stormed in. Some guests gasped, others whispered. Kemi barely had time to react before the woman lunged toward her, aiming a fierce chest kick at her seated form. But Kemi saw it coming, just in time. She rolled off the chair, hitting the floor with a thud, just as the attack missed her by inches. The hall was in chaos. Guests screamed, ushers scrambled. But the woman wasn't done. She turned, spotted the towering four-step wedding cake, and with one mighty sweep of her arm, sent it crashing to the floor. The beautiful masterpiece, carefully crafted with white and gold icing, lay in ruins. Shocked murmurs rippled through the hall. "Who is she?" one guest asked. "What's going on?" another whispered. The woman jumped onto one of the tables, crushing plates of jollof rice and peppered meat under her heels. Wine glasses shattered, spilled champagne mixed with broken china. The ushers rushed to stop her, but she was quick, too quick. Dodging their grasp, she snatched a chicken thigh from a tray and took a huge bite while sprinting across the hall, leaving a trail of destruction. Laughter, shock, confusion, it was a mix of everything. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, she grabbed a handful of smashed cake and marched toward the groom. Before Tunde could react, she smeared it across his face. "You will never know peace," she spat, her eyes blazing with fury. Gasps echoed through the hall. Tunde stood frozen, cake dripping from his face. With that, she turned on her heels and stormed toward the exit. But just before leaving, she dropped a wrapped carton on the gift table. Security hesitated. One usher whispered nervously, "What if it's a bomb?" Panic spread. Guests edged away from the package. A brave man, likely emboldened by alcohol, stepped forward, ripped off the wrapping, and flipped open the box. Inside, a single card lay. It read, "Happy Never After." Silence. The wedding was officially ruined. Kemi and Tunde could do nothing but apologize to their guests before leaving in disgrace. When they got home, Kemi flung her veil onto the couch and turned to Tunde, her eyes wet with frustration. "This is all your fault," she snapped. "You ruined my life." Tunde, still in his cake-stained suit, let out a bitter laugh. "My fault? Don't act like you were innocent. You knew what you were doing, Kemi." She folded her arms, trembling. "I was just a naive girl. You took advantage of me. You molded me into the woman you wanted." Tunde stepped closer, anger flickering in his eyes. "Naive? Kemi, don't forget you were the one giving me green light every chance you had. I was your fantasy. I only made your wildest dreams come true. Don't ever forget that." Kemi's breath hitched. She sank onto the couch, tears spilling down her cheeks. "My wedding is ruined, and my sister, she'll never forgive me." Tunde sighed, his expression softening. He knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms. "We'll fix this. We'll make things right." But deep down, they both knew. Some betrayals could never be fixed. The woman who crashed their wedding was Kemi's elder sister, Aisha. Kemi and Aisha had lost their parents at a young age. Aisha had done everything humanly possible to raise her little sister. She had worked endless shifts, sacrificed her happiness, even made desperate choices, like sleeping with her boss just to secure a job. Over time, things got better. Aisha worked her way up and eventually started her own company. She gave Kemi a comfortable life, a life where Kemi never had to struggle. And then came Tunde. He was once Aisha's boyfriend. When he faced financial hardship, Aisha let him stay in her house. She used her connections to secure him a well-paying job. When he wanted to start his own business, she helped fund it. She never imagined that, behind her back, her own sister and her boyfriend were having an affair. The day she found out was the day her world crumbled. She had come home early from work, excited to surprise Tunde with a dinner date. Instead, she opened her bedroom door and found them tangled in her sheets. her own sister, her own boyfriend. The betrayal was too much to bear. She ended things with Tunde immediately. As for Kemi, she expected guilt, remorse, an apology. But instead, Kemi packed her bags, moved out, and blocked Aisha on every platform. 4 months later, Aisha received a message from a friend. Wedding pictures, Kemi and Tunde's wedding. Aisha saw red, and that's how she ended up crashing the reception. Kemi sat on the edge of the bed, still in her wedding gown, her eyes swollen from crying all night. The apartment was silent, except for the occasional honk of distant cars. Tunde stood by the window, running a hand over his beard, his frustration evident. "We need to fix this," Kemi whispered, staring at her hands. Tunde scoffed. "Fix what? The wedding is over. Your sister humiliated us in front of everyone, and now she's pulling out of my company. That woman wants to destroy me." Kemi turned to him, her voice shaking. "She wants to destroy us, and can you blame her? We betrayed her, Tunde. She was my sister, my only family. She sacrificed everything for me, and I—" Tunde slammed his hand on the dresser. "And I what, Kemi? She's not a saint either. You think I forgot how she treated me back then? She made me feel like a charity case." Kemi flinched at his outburst. "She never treated you badly. She helped you. She trusted us, and we repaid her with betrayal." Tunde exhaled sharply, then sat beside her. "What do you want me to do? Beg? We made our choices, Kemi. She will get over it." Kemi shook her head. "You don't know Aisha. She doesn't forgive." Tunde leaned back, rubbing his temples. "Then we go see her. We make her listen." Kemi hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, let's go." Aisha stood on the balcony of her luxury villa, sipping a glass of wine. The ocean breeze played with her silk robe as she scrolled through her phone. Kemi's messages remained unread. Her assistant, a young Indonesian woman named Lani, walked up to her. "Ma'am, the private chef is preparing breakfast. Would you like anything special?" Aisha smiled slightly. "Just the usual." Lani nodded and left. Aisha took another sip of wine, then sighed. She had been waiting for this moment, for the pain to fade, but it hadn't. No matter how beautiful the view, she still felt the sting of betrayal. Then her phone vibrated. Aisha smirked and let it ring. Then she typed a quick message to Kemi. "I warned you. Your life will never be peaceful." She turned off her phone and leaned back, watching the waves crash against the shore. Kemi and Tunde stood outside Aisha's gate, stunned. "The madam has traveled," the gateman said, picking at his nails. "She don't go Bali." Kemi swallowed hard. "Did she say when she's coming back?" The gateman shrugged. "She say make nobody disturb her." Tunde clenched his jaw. "This is ridiculous. She's acting like a child." Kemi turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Tunde. We are the ones who acted like children, and now we will pay for it." Kemi sat at the dining table, scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly. Every news blog had the same headline: "Scorned ex crashes wedding, leaves groom in ruins." Tunde's business was in free fall after Aisha pulled out her shares. Investors were panicking, and clients were withdrawing. Every attempt to contact Aisha had been ignored. Tunde walked in, his face tight with frustration. He threw his phone on the table. "Another investor just backed out. Do you know what that means, Kemi? I'm going bankrupt." Kemi rubbed her temples. "I told you we should go to Bali." "And do what? Kneel and beg?" He scoffed, pacing. "She doesn't want an apology. She wants revenge." Kemi was silent for a moment before she whispered, "Maybe we deserve it." Tunde spun around, his eyes dark. "You think we deserve to lose everything? Aisha is acting like she owns our lives." "But she did own yours at some point, didn't she?" Kemi's voice was sharper than she intended. "She built you up, gave you connections, made you who you are, and you—" "Don't," Tunde warned. "You repaid her by getting into bed with me," Kemi continued, meeting his glare. Tunde's jaw tightened. "And you let me." Silence. Kemi closed her eyes. "We need to fix this before she completely destroys us." Tunde exhaled heavily, dragging a hand over his face. Fine, we go to Bali. Aisha was lying by the infinity pool, dressed in a silk robe, sipping fresh coconut juice. Lani, her assistant, stood nearby. Ma'am, you have visitors. Aisha raised a brow. Who? Lani hesitated. Your sister. And her husband. The coconut in Aisha's hand almost slipped. Her fingers tightened around it. She knew they'd come eventually. She took a deep breath and placed the coconut down. Let them in. Kemi walked in first, her eyes scanning the luxurious space. Everything smelled of money. Aisha had leveled up. Tunde followed, looking tense. Aisha sat on a lounge chair, completely relaxed. You flew all the way here just to annoy me? Kemi swallowed. Aisha, please, what? Forgive you? Hug you and say everything is fine? Aisha gave a dry laugh. You should both be grateful I didn't go further. Tunde sighed. Aisha, look. Aisha held up a hand. Don't talk. I have nothing to say to you. Kemi stepped closer. You've made your point. You ruined my wedding, destroyed his business. What else do you want? Aisha's expression hardened. I want you to suffer. The way I suffered when I walked in and saw you two in bed. The way I suffered when I had to rebuild my life alone. Kemi's throat tightened. I know I hurt you. You betrayed me, Kemi, Aisha snapped. You were my blood, my family, and you threw it all away for him. Tunde clenched his fists. Aisha, you're being dramatic. Aisha slapped him so hard that the sound echoed through the villa. Kemi gasped. Tunde held his cheek, eyes wide. You... Get out. Aisha's voice was dangerously calm. And don't ever come near me again. Kemi's eyes welled up. Aisha, please. We're still sisters. Aisha turned away. Number, we're not. Kemi wiped a tear and nodded slowly. Okay. She grabbed Tunde's arm and pulled him towards the exit. As they reached the door, Aisha's voice stopped them. Oh, and Tunde. He turned stiffly. A slow, cruel smile spread across Aisha's lips. Your company? I just bought it. Tunde's breath caught. His body went still. What? Aisha sipped her coconut juice, looking unbothered. I own 60% of the shares, remember? I sold them to your biggest rival. She gave him a mocking look. Congratulations, Tunde. You now work for your enemy. Kemi's heart dropped. Tunde looked like he was going to explode. Aisha simply turned away, dismissing them. Happy never after, she murmured. And with that, she walked inside. Kemi tried to fix things, but investors wanted nothing to do with them. The scandal had ruined their reputation. The wedding reception they once dreamed of? A distant, bitter memory. One night, Kemi sat alone in their dark apartment, staring at a message on her phone. Aisha, I told you, your life will never be peaceful. Kemi burst into tears. Kemi had thought that marrying Tunde would bring her happiness, but in just a few months, her life had turned into a nightmare. She was 1 month pregnant before the wedding, hoping their child would bring them closer. Instead, everything fell apart. Tunde had lost everything, his company, his reputation, and Aisha's financial backing. With nothing left, he drowned himself in alcohol and spent nights sleeping around. When he came home at odd hours, he would lash out at Kemi, blaming her for his downfall. You destroyed my life, he would scream, his breath reeking of liquor. Because she knew. Her sister was right. Tunde, please stop, Kemi would beg, holding her stomach, fearing for her unborn child. But he didn't stop. He turned her into his personal punching bag, and she had no one to turn to. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Bali, Aisha was living her best life. She spent her days exploring breathtaking beaches, indulging in luxurious spa treatments, and immersing herself in the beauty of the island. She had wiped Tunde and Kemi from her life, determined to move forward. Then, one fateful night, Kemi's world shattered. Tunde came home drunk and furious. His business had officially shut down, and he had been kicked out of a club for causing a scene. He needed to take his anger out on someone. You think you're better than me now, huh? He slurred, shoving her against the wall. Tunde, stop, she pleaded. But he didn't. His fists kept coming, his rage blinding him. Then Kemi felt it, a sharp, unbearable pain in her stomach. Warmth spread between her legs. When she looked down, her hands were covered in blood. She was losing the baby. With trembling hands, she grabbed her phone and called her best friend, Chinwe. "Help me, please," she whispered before collapsing. By the time Aisha heard the news, it was all over social media. A post from an old friend. Kemi in the hospital after a brutal beating. She lost the baby. Pray for her. Aisha's heart stopped. Her hands shook as she read the words over and over. Without a second thought, she booked the next available flight to Lagos. The moment she stepped into the hospital room, she saw a broken woman. Kemi was curled up on the hospital bed, her once radiant face covered in bruises. When she looked up and saw Aisha, she broke down in uncontrollable sobs. "Sister, I'm so sorry," Kemi choked out, tears streaming down her face. "I should have listened to you. Please forgive me." Aisha's eyes filled with tears as she rushed forward and held Kemi tightly. "You're my sister. Nothing else matters," she whispered. They clung to each other, the pain of betrayal replaced by the strength of their bond. But Aisha wasn't just there to comfort Kemi, she was there to end this. She made a few phone calls. By the next morning, Tunde was arrested. At his trial, the judge found him guilty of second-degree murder for the loss of their child and domestic violence. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. It was over. After being discharged from the hospital, Kemi spent a month recovering at Aisha's penthouse. For the first time in months, she felt safe. Then, one afternoon, Aisha walked in with 2 first-class tickets. "We're going on a vacation," she said with a smile. "Where to?" Kemi asked. "Hawaii. It's time you start living again." For the first time in a long time, Kemi smiled. Their trip was magical. They lounged on pristine beaches, swam in crystal-clear waters, and laughed over expensive dinners. Kemi felt the weight of her past lifting. One evening, as they sat on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore, Aisha turned to her. "I have a program that's going to change your life," she said. "You're going to become a boss lady. No more living in anyone's shadow. You ready?" Kemi wiped a tear from her cheek and nodded. "Yes, I'm ready." As the sun set over the ocean, 2 sisters, once torn apart, sat side by side, stronger than ever. The end.